Hello. Welcome. Welcome, LinkedIn. Welcome, friends. Welcome to the first episode of this new weekly LinkedIn Live series on leadership and the future of work. I'm Melina Cordero. If you don't know me, I am the founder of P20 Leadership, and I'm on a mission to equip leaders with the tools and the insights and the ideas that you need to lead effectively in what I call the post-2020 workplace. On Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, I've committed myself to going live here on LinkedIn with really cool experts who I know, who I've met, and who bring really fresh perspectives to key topics on the leadership in the post 2020 workplace. Something new, something fresh, something kind of eye opening. And so today's key leadership topic is what I call the big bad B word, burnout. And so I'm thrilled to have with me someone who's very special because not only is she an
Mhm.
expert on this, she's also a good friend of mine. So this is going to be fun, hopefully for both of us and for you. Amelia brings a really huge burnout busting toolbox to the game. So she is a former Wall Street investment banker. She is an Ivy League MBA. She's now a leadership coach. And I say all that because she gets it, right? She's been in super high pressure environments. She knows burnout, Amelia, and you now work with people who deal with that all the time. She also learned Spanish in like 3 months flat, which is just an aside that really impressed me. But
We're
hi,
getting there.
Amelia. Thank you. Thank you for coming on and being my first guest.
Of course. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Melina. I love, love, love talking about burnout, which might sound like something weird to say, but it's something that impacts so many of us. And so I'm so excited to be here to talk about how to break free and break out of burnout.
Yes, and I'm glad you used the term break free because you've developed as you've built your coaching practice, which is now fully blooming. You have built a bit of a specialty on burnout and stress, and so you have this podcast that you call Breaking Free from the Grind, which is very apropos. But why don't we start there? Can you tell us what sort of led you to this topic? Because it is really important.
Yeah, for sure. I really think with anyone who is in the coaching space or the leadership development space, it's like we are always our client number one. And so I was someone who I imagine, like most people listening in today, most of your audience, always an overachiever, always hyper focused on my goals, straight A student, valedictorian, like Ivy League, I mean, all the things, right? And when we come from that place and when we're just that type of person, what I found is that though I had achieved this great level of outward success in my career and in my life and all these things, inwardly, how I was feeling as I was creating that success was exhausted, was burnt out, was stressed, was pressured. And what I realized is that I had created success in my career and in my life through overworking instead of through what I call creating sustainable success, which is when you know how to master and stop overworking but still you're invaluable to your company, clients, and teams. And because, especially when I graduated from Columbia and started working in investment banking, when you're in such a high pressure, high visibility, 90 plus hour work week environment, if you've achieved success and if you're excelling through overworking, that approach is not going to work in a 90-hour work week. And that's not sustainable. And so I actually developed Breaking Free from the Grind and work specifically with high performing individuals who are working in high pressure industries like finance, consulting, big law, all the things, so that you learn ways to better manage stress and self doubt and overwhelm while still being successful at your job.
It's so important. It's so needed. And I could go on and on about my experience, really similar to yours, right? Commercial real estate.
Yeah.
We've talked about this a million hours together. And
Yeah.
that experience, that the higher I climbed up the ladder, essentially the more stressed I got, right? The
Yeah.
more I felt that pressure, the more I felt exhausted, the more it invaded my personal life, right? And a lot of times I think we're in these environments and we're achieving and we think, okay, if I just achieve this, if I just get this promotion, if I can just lead the team, it gets better. And actually, based on my experience, and I think yours too, it's not exactly the case.
Yeah. No, you're so right. And like you said, it actually gets worse because as you progress through your career, you're given more responsibility. You're given more visibility. And so the pressure that we feel to perform only increases. And
Mhm.
if we haven't really learned how to master breaking out of overworking, we just end up overworking more and more.
Yeah.
So true.
So, mini question behind that then. So, are you saying that it is possible to exist and work and succeed in an environment like that without feeling burnt out at the levels that you and I felt? Is that actually possible?
Yes, and it's so good to say that because that's if you're in right now in your career a place where you feel incredibly burnt out, sometimes it's hard to believe or you just don't know that an alternate reality exists, that you can work a 90-hour work week and not feel burnt out, or you can work a 60-hour work week and feel calm and confident and in control and not overwhelmed and exhausted. And so it is possible. A lot of what we'll talk about today are tips to breaking out of burnout. What I really learned through doing this work myself, through developing the curriculum, through going deep on the coaching aspect of things is in order to break out of burnout, we really have to change our mindset, meaning change how we're thinking about work and also change or develop the skill of learning how to manage our emotions better through emotional processing, through being able to sit with emotions and not just focus on the tactics, changing what we're doing at work. It starts with first, if you get that email hit your inbox, naturally your thought is probably, I have to respond to this. And so it's really about changing your mindset, how you're thinking about that email so that your first thought isn't, I have to respond to this, which creates a lot of pressure and causes you to go crazy. But instead, focusing like, this can wait. It's okay. I have time to respond to it.
Mm.
So it is possible to feel less burnt out in the grind.
That's really good to know because one thing that I spend a lot of time talking about and researching and sharing with clients and whoever will listen to me is that burnout is much more common than most of us realize. And so many people suffer through burnout and don't talk about it and aren't open
Mhm.
about it because they think it's just them. And so, if this can help you, and this is why this topic is the first one in the series because it is so prevalent, here are a couple facts. So 77% of employees in the US have or will experience burnout at some point in their career, right? So we're talking about over three quarters of the population that's working deals with burnout at some point. Right now, in this moment, one in two employees is experiencing burnout. So if you're a leader and you have a team and you think burnout's not an issue in your team, statistically you're probably wrong, right? Sorry to tell you, but the topic's important. And the other thing is that burnout rates and rates of stress are going up. And so another question I have for you, because you've been working
Mhm.
directly with leaders for several years now, it feels like we talk more about burnout, we're developing more practices around it, but it's getting worse. So what exactly are we doing wrong? What is it that we're missing in our approaches to burnout?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And the biggest thing that I see in clients that are coming to me feeling burnt out is that we are focusing in a corporate environment. We are not being taught the tools and the skills we need to manage our mindset or our minds better on the job and to manage our emotions at work. Think of your corporate environment, think of your job. You're not hearing your job talking about emotional processing, emotional management. Your job is likely providing training in technical areas like modeling or public speaking versus how to manage your mindset at work. And really, so what I see happening is what we're doing is naturally we're trying to change what we're doing. We're trying to change how we're showing up at work. We're trying to change how we're prioritizing our tasks. We're taking sabbaticals or taking rest, but then coming back to work and suddenly falling into the exact same cycles of burnout. Because it's almost like if you're focusing on changing what you're doing day to day at work, it's like putting a band aid on a gaping wound. Whereas you're not addressing the root cause of what's causing you to feel burnt out. Whereas if you actually learn how to focus on the mindset piece and the emotions piece first, that's actually stitching up the wound. That's actually taking antibiotics to make sure there aren't secondary infections. That's actually addressing the root cause of the issue so that you feel differently at work. You feel more relaxed. You feel more in control. You feel even just more neutral. And then when you're feeling like that, then it's easy to show up in a different way at work. So it's our focus is on the wrong part of the equation.
You're so right. If I had a dime for every time I told myself when I was in that environment, if I can just clear out my inbox, I
Yeah.
will feel less stressed. I was so wrong because I would just
Yes,
get more burnt out trying to clear out my inbox. Anyways, I think that's a
exactly.
really
So
good
good.
point.
Yes,
Right.
the way to focus is on how you're thinking about
Yeah.
your inbox and then
Mhm.
how you're managing and processing the stress that you feel when you look at
Yeah.
the 52 unread
Yeah.
emails or whatever it is. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
so
great
good.
example actually because
Mhm.
I taught myself that somehow to be okay with looking at an inbox with 25,000 emails, right? And I would have
Mhm.
colleagues or friends like walk by my desk, see my inbox, and they would get really triggered and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, how do you deal with that?" And I had learned how to be okay with it. And like I could still
Yes,
manage it. I wasn't the most organized, but it didn't trigger this like stress response in me. I was like, do I prefer to spend an hour a day clearing my inbox or do I prefer to spend that hour doing actual work that produces
exactly,
something that takes me forward? And so I chose that.
exactly. So
You hit the nail on the head when you talk about mindset, right? And so when I asked you to
mhm.
come speak and share your wisdom about burnout, you said, "Oh, I'm going to share 3 tips," right?
Yeah.
So 3 concrete things that you
Mhm.
tell your clients. We're
Yeah.
getting free Amelia advice here. So take advantage. You said you had 3 concrete tips. So I want to just open the floor to you. What's tip number one?
Yeah, okay. So I these are concrete tips. So they'll sound like things to do or not do. But in addition to just giving the tip, I want to speak to the mindset shift behind it. So that it when you make the mindset shift, the tip actually becomes quite easy to do. And so you'll actually change your habits and how you're working permanently in your career. So the first tip, and I love this so much because if there's one thing, if there's only one thing that I could tell clients to change, to break out of burnout and to feel better, it's saying no more. Because the big aha here is if you are feeling burnt out in your career right now, I don't need to know what you're doing. I don't need to know the industry you're in, the dynamic, how, if your boss is an asshole. If you're feeling burnt out, I can tell you right now, I know you are saying yes to too much at work. And so to break out of burnout, so you feel better, you feel less stressed, you feel less overwhelmed, you have to start saying no more. Now, that can be no to the meeting invite that comes through that you really don't need to be a part of, but are accepting out of guilt or fear. It can be saying no to a request that comes through from another department or another team that isn't high priority for you. It can be saying no to taking on a step up opportunity that you know deep down isn't in line with your developmental goals or what you want to get out of your career. And a great way to have a filter here for yourself is everything that's coming through, emails, requests from your team or requests from senior leadership. The filter is if you're saying yes out of a place coming from a place of guilt or fear or shame, like I'm worried that people won't think I'm a team player. I'm worried people won't think I'm a good manager. I'm worried I'm going to get dinged on my performance reviews. That is actually something that we should be saying no to. Whereas if we're having something come through and deep down we know, okay, this is valuable. This is high priority. Even if I don't love doing it, I know that this is going to move the needle for my clients, or those are the things that we need to be saying yes to. And so the mindset here is really making the shift from we think, and especially if we're high achievers, we think that saying no is a bad thing. That is our mindset. Saying no is a bad thing. And so what the shift that I want us all to make and to consider is that saying no is actually the best thing that you can do for your career. Saying no is helpful to the other person because it allows them to solve the problem in another way or handle the request in another way. Say no is valuable to you because it keeps you focused on the tasks that are truly valuable to you, where you can add the most value and that you genuinely care about. And saying no also trains people how they treat you. So if you're the person that always says yes, if you're the person that's always the first to respond with a will do on it when a request comes through, people are going to continue to pile more work on your plate and you will continue to feel more overwhelmed. So saying no is the best thing that you can do, and have fun with it. I always suggest to clients when we first start working on this, because it is hard if you're not in the habit of saying no. It feels scary. It feels like you're going to lose your job. It feels like people are going to hate you. And so, what I always say is look for small ways. If you're not used to saying no, look for one opportunity and almost gamify it. Look for one opportunity a day where you can just practice saying no, whether it's declining the meeting invite you don't really need to be a part of, or whether it's just saying no to something or someone, even outside of the context of work. If someone offers you a cookie, just saying no, just to get in the habit of saying it so it becomes easier.
I love
So that
that,
would
and you
be
can
the
have a
first.
no inventory, right,
Yes.
of
Yes.
really and I use this a lot in my work, right, this idea of small hinges swing big doors, and I think what you're talking about is exactly that.
I love that.
Start getting into the habit, start getting into the practice,
Mhm.
but a question on that comes up for me is, how do you say no strategically? How do you say no to a request or to a project in a way that doesn't seem like you're not collaborative or you're
Mhm.
lazy, or what are some of the ways you advise clients on saying no strategically?
Yeah. I think one of the best things to do is in your no, really focus on the shared success of the request or of the project or of the opportunity while still saying no. So that can sound like recognizing, I understand this is a high priority item and I want to make sure you get the support you need. I'm not the best person for this task. Or I want to make sure that whatever you're asking happens and is successful. I'm completely at capacity right now. So and so might be a better resource to reach out to. So, really highlighting the shared success that you also want the request to be done, the project to succeed, whatever, while offering some sort of redirection as to who might be better, or simply asking the question, how else might you solve this? Asking that to the other person and allowing them
Ugh,
to get creative.
yeah. This is so great. We could do an entire episode
We could
just
do,
on
yes,
saying no, and I'm sure
with
I
like
bet you
scripts.
have. I
Yes,
know.
yes,
I
I
bet
do.
you have at least one episode on your podcast that talks about this. So anyone who
Oh,
wants to dive
yes.
deeper on that, go check it out, Breaking Free from the Grind. Amelia has really great, just very topical episodes on there, so it'll be easy to find. Okay, so number 1 is saying no and saying no strategically more and how to frame it.
Mhm.
I think it's super helpful. What
Yes.
is the second tip?
The second tip is you actually, to break out of burnout, you need to make more decisions. Because just like I said, with if I don't need to know anything about your job or the context of your industry. If you are feeling burnt out right now, I know that you are not making enough decisions. And instead, you're spending time in the land of overthinking, which so much that's all of us, right? And so, what I say is, if you're a little like benchmark I give to my clients is, if you're taking more than 1 minute to make a day to day decision in your career, you're thinking too much. You're overthinking. Now, I'm not talking about major career transitions. What am I going to do next? What's the most fulfilling job for me? I'm talking about the day to day decisions on the job in terms of how we write emails, how we communicate with other people, how we strategize deliverables, a plan of attack for deliverables, right? Because overthinking is actually one of the sneakiest perpetuators of burnout. It's one of the sneakiest causes because we're not realizing, if you take, let's say you rewrite a client email 3 times until it sounds just perfect. Or before you send a Slack to your team, you spend 5 minutes like rewriting and deleting until it just sounds perfect and like you're not being too demanding or too direct. That is overthinking. And we spend so much time, like we should all think even now, take stock. How much time do I spend thinking about how to do something and worrying
Mhm.
about if I'm going to do it correctly,
Yeah.
which is a huge mental and emotional drain that
Yeah.
makes us feel more burnt out and then literally sucks away time from our day where we're not just doing the thing, where we're not
Mm.
just sending the email or we're sending the Slack or we're saying the thing that needs to be said. And so overthinking is actually one of the sneakiest causes of burnout. And so the tip here is make more decisions. Give yourself a minute for the day-to-day decisions. Give yourself a minute to think about, okay, how am I going to write this email to my team? Then I send it out. Or how am I going to write this Slack to my team? Then I'm going to send it out. And the thing is, when you get in the habit of making more decisions faster, you realize that there are no such thing as a right or a wrong decision. Because if you make a decision that has an unintended consequence or that you realize is actually moving you further away from what you're trying to accomplish, the solve is simply making another decision. The solve is
Mm.
simply making a decision that gets you back, brings you back to the place you want to be. And so the better you become at making fast decisions and making more decisions, the better you also become at adjusting on the fly or changing directions or changing how you react to something if you're realizing whatever you're driving or whatever you're leading is going down a path you don't want it to. And so the more decisions you can make, the faster you will break out of burnout. You'll save yourself all that emotional and mental energy from overthinking, and you'll actually be executing more. You'll actually be getting more done and also adjusting more quickly on the fly if that's what needs to happen too. So
Where were
decisions are the
you
best.
when I was responding to corporate emails, Amelia? I needed
Right.
to hear this 7 years ago. It's so true, right?
Yeah,
And the
and I was
research
doing the same
confirms.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. The research confirms exactly what you're saying, that so much of burnout isn't actually workload or hours worked. It's actually
Yeah.
exactly what you talked about, that emotional stress, the self-doubt, the
Yes.
imposter syndrome, the overthinking. And all I can say is yes to what you just said,
Yeah.
because yes, we have to find ways to strip away the overthinking, and starting with realizing you're doing it and identifying that the areas or the spaces where you do it most, where it's sucking up more of
Yes.
your time and energy. And just to stay with that email example, this is where AI has been really helpful to me, right? Because when
Love
you
it.
get in your
Mhm.
head and you're like, I don't know if I'm wording this correct. No, go to AI, whatever your email assistant is, whichever one you use, and say, look, these are the points I need to get across. Do it in a professional way, make it direct, XYZ, done, boom, out. There are tools that can help you with this, right? It's so useful. That's a whole other episode we could do on, and we
Yeah.
will do some more on AI. But for the sake of time, tell us tip number 3.
So tip number 3 is seek to simplify day to day at work. So I imagine everyone who's listening in to this LinkedIn Live, I imagine your audience, I know my audience, we are all overachievers, right? And so it's almost like our brain is programmed. We have goggles on, we have a lens where everything that we're interacting with at work, we see it through the lens of how can I do more here? How can I over deliver here? How can I prove my worth here? And so when that's the lens we're seeing our work experience through, the result from that is we overwork, we over deliver when it's not necessary, we do more than is actually needed. And because we're doing so much more, we're literally overworking, spending more time, more energy than needs to be spent on things. We create and we take ourselves to a place of burnout. From a mindset piece, I want you to imagine you want to put on your doing less goggles. So it's training ourselves to see everything that's on our to-do list, everything that comes through from our in our inboxes. How can I simplify this? What can I delete here? How can I make this easier? How can I make this shorter but better? What can I omit? Those are the questions we want to get in the habit of asking ourselves first before we do anything. That's us putting on our do less but better
Mhm.
goggles. And the result from thinking in this way, having our first thought be not how can I over deliver here, but instead, how can I simplify this? How can I make this simpler? The result is you do less, you work less, but you actually produce better work. It's more succinct, it's more potent, it's more focused, it's less complex. And that is the work that actually benefits your clients, your company, and your teams. And so seeking to simplify is one of the best things that we can do by asking ourselves the question, how can I make this simpler? But jump in and do anything to help us
Yeah.
break out of burnout.
It's like that 80-20 rule that we always talk about, we always hear about that, yeah, you get all of the value out of 20% of the tasks on your to-do list, and it's true, and I think you're right. There's this "I've gotta do it all" mindset that so many
Mhm.
high achievers, high achieving leaders and professionals do, and it's, "Okay, you asked me to do something, I add it to the list."
Right.
Or I see something needs to be done, I add it to the list. I get an email, I add it to the list. And so
Mhm.
I think you're so right that of saying, okay, I'm only going to have 3 things a day. That's one thing that helped me a lot. I would create these
Yes.
enormous to-do lists that I would never complete. And then each day ended it in a feeling of failure because I wasn't
Yes.
achieving on the to-do list. And one thing that helped me a lot, and I think really aligns with this tip that you just shared, is I said, okay, every day I'm going to identify 3 max things to accomplish, to finish, to complete. These are the 3 most important things that if I get anything done, it's gotta be these 3 things. And so what happens is you complete the 3 things because 3 things is much easier than 18,
Mhm.
and then you feel more accomplished and you're removing that sense of failure, which to your second tip is a big
Mhm.
source of burnout.
Yes, I love the 3 things. I do something similar with clients where we start their day with 3 things they're grateful for, 3 wins from the day before, and then their 3 focuses for today. It's like the power of 3. And
Mhm.
if you take 3 minutes to do that at the start of your workday, you will completely transform how you feel and also how you're showing up at work. And then
Yeah.
another mind shift that might be helpful too is I talk a lot with my clients about doing A minus work. So seeking to simplify, it's the mindset shift is going from this place of I need to over deliver A plus work to what does A minus work look like for me?
Mhm.
That's going to be your new goal. That's going to be your new
Yes.
standard. A lot of people I've heard say it in terms of doing B minus work or B work, but that doesn't land with my clients' brains. So we're
No,
taking it
that was
doesn't land
for
with
the
my brain either. I'd be like, wait, B work? No, that no, 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 no. A
yeah.
lot of
No,
resistance.
not a
So
B
let's just focus
student.
on yeah, exactly. Let's just focus on A minus work. Okay.
Yeah, I love that A minus. And I've told clients, and I've told myself this most of the time, reminding myself that, okay, my A minus or B plus work is probably most A pluses, right? And so
Mhm.
we have to recognize our own sort of warped lenses on things, especially when
Yes.
you come from a salutatorian or a valedictorian background, right? Like
Yeah.
we're still working through those things from younger ages. So yes, I
Yeah.
love the A minus work. Is this A minus? Yes. Okay, we're going to move forward.
Right.
So we're almost at time, but I want
Mhm.
people to know how to find you. You have a lot of really great materials. We were just talking about your newsletter that came out last week, really resonated with me on the topic of fake it till you make it and why that
Yes.
doesn't work and why it's bad.
Mhm.
But where can people find you and this the wisdom that you're always sharing?
Yeah. So the best place to find me, I have a weekly podcast called Breaking Free from the Grind, and that's available on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can hear normal podcasts. I would, if you enjoyed this conversation today, and if you found this conversation useful, I would highly encourage you to follow me. And so you get the episodes downloaded. They come out every Friday at 9 a.m. So it's a great way to self reflect on the week. That would be the number one place to for content. And then if you want to know more about me, my one-on-one coaching program, Breaking Free from the Grind, how we can work together, or if you want to sign up to receive the weekly newsletter that has more tips and tricks on how to break free from the grind and beat burnout, go to my website. It's www.amelianoelcoaching.com. And I imagine you can share that, Melina, in the comments. But there you can learn more about me, how I work with clients, and also sign up to receive weekly emails with more tips and tricks. So those would be the 2 places, the 2 best places.
Yes,
or connect on
I
LinkedIn.
benefit from
Obviously, I'm here on LinkedIn. Amelia Noel.
you go live on LinkedIn from time to time, which I always love because there's like
Yes,
short nuggets on like really specific topics, which I really appreciate. So thank you so much, Amelia,
of
for being my
course.
first guest on this series.
Yay!
I'm so glad to have this topic and to have you featured. And to everyone who joined live or who's watching the recording, thank you. Thank you for watching, for tuning in
Yeah,
live. I'm going to be
thank
back
you.
here, same place, same time, next Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern on LinkedIn with another guest on a new topic related to leadership, all about helping you be a better leader in the post 2020 workplace. And if this resonated, follow along, share it with someone who needs to hear this because as I joke with my friends, and you know that kids book with the dinosaur on the cover that says all my friends are dead? I always say all my friends are burnt out. Like all my friends are burnt out. So
I
if you're
love it.
watching this, know that one in two of your friends is if they're working are likely burnt out. Send this to them.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I'm sure we will have you on again because there's so much more to talk about. But thank you for being on. And
of
we will
course.
see you LinkedIn next week at 1 p.m.
Thank you for having me, and I'm so happy you're doing this series, Melina, because it's so needed, especially for leaders.